Oh, hello there. It's Dice Tower Tonight, episode 104.
Go team!
Welcome to Dice Tower Tonight, a video cast about board games and card games, especially the people who play them. On tonight's show, why can't we all just work together for once? We're talking about team building games. Maybe we'll have something for your next corporate retreat. Plus, Crystal has a game for me in the chat. We talk about some recent play sessions, and we answer questions from the audience live. I'm Eric Summerer, and joining me now, your team captain, it's Crystal Dax.
Ooh, gotta love that announcer voice.
I gotta break it out every once in a while, right?
Yeah, that was awesome. Hi, Eric. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you, Crystal?
I'm good. I know your internet has been a little bit squirrely on your end, and the stream looked like it buffered a little bit right when you started, but I think it's good now. So
Good. I'm hoping that things stay stable and happy for our shenanigans today. So it's
absolutely excited about our shenanigans. In fact,
yes.
Just to let everybody know, make sure if you would like to participate in the shenanigans in a little while, make sure that you have, a web browser or a mobile device with a web browser nearby that you can use, because we're gonna do some participatory shenanigans here in just a little bit.
Indeed. We should probably talk about what we've been playing lately. Who gets to go first this time, Crystal?
All right, well, I am going to talk about a genre of games that I do not talk about that often, and that is an RPG. I tend to spend most of my hobby gaming time on board games because they love and passion, but I actually really enjoy role-playing games. I used to play in a couple of different D&D campaigns, including one with Roy Cannaday, who obviously most of you know, those became a little bit too time-consuming to do in addition to my board gaming, and so I tend to not play role-playing games that often, but recently I had the opportunity to host a live stream play of an RPG that Renegade Games Studios published called Alice is Missing. And we played this virtually online, even though I do have a physical copy of the game. So I haven't actually used, it's funny, I haven't used my copy of the game and its components, even though I've now played the game. So Alice is Missing is a one RPG. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means it is a role-playing game that is contained within a single game session. So you start and you finish, and it's done. It's not an ongoing campaign game like most Dungeons & Dragons and other bigger RPGs are. The thing that makes Alice is Missing unique compared to other role-playing games is that it is completely played silent. There is no verbal speaking during the course of the game. All of the game conversation takes place through text messages. And for my game specifically, we used a dedicated Discord server that had been set up to facilitate the game specifically. The theme of the game is there is a high school junior named Alice Briarwood who has gone missing. All of the characters in the box are friends or acquaintances of Alice who have kind of come back to their little small, sweet, sleepy town and are trying to figure out what happened to Alice. All of the characters are given a character card that shows what their relationship is to Alice, and then they get to pick some specific traits, and they get to set up, when you're setting up the game before you start playing, you form relationships with the other characters using some prompt cards that the game includes. So you have all of that pre-established before you get going. Once you start gameplay, it lasts for 90 minutes total. That's it. And the game has a really cool system in that it has cards with numbers on them that relate to specific points in time during that 90 minutes. So there are 10-minute cards, 20-minute cards, 30-minute cards. Some of them are in 5-minute increments. I think there's like 55. Yeah, there's a 45. And there are multiples of each of those specific times. So when you play this game over and over, you won't see the same cards every time you play. You'll pick a specific one each time. And those help move the story along and dictate what is going to happen in the action specifically. It'll tell particular players who get those cards things to send to the group chat with all of the players that will help move the story along. So it could be a piece of information about where Alice was last seen, or something that you know about Alice, or something that was found. And all of it sounded fascinating to me, and I wanted to play it. But I was like, how would that really work? Like, it seems like you'd just sit there not knowing what to say. And for some people, I guess that could maybe happen, but that is not at all the experience I had. It was the singular most emotional and immersive game experience I think I've ever had in my entire life. Like, we were in this world, and I was emotionally invested in what had happened to Alice in a way that I did not anticipate. Me and other players cried at the end of the game, like actually cried. And I don't obviously want to spoil how our game ended, but it can end a whole bunch of different ways because of those time cards. And there are some content warnings here, obviously, with a young girl being missing. There is the potential for acts of violence or other things like that. So, the group that you're playing with can help dictate how far you want to take those types of themes. But the characters can also die, which is really interesting. And the game facilitates that in a specific way. If your character gets a card that says that they die, it very specifically tells you, do this, and then you are no longer allowed to message the group at all. Like, you just basically drop off. And obviously those only happen toward the end of the game, so you don't miss a lot of the action. But like, that happened in our game to one of the characters. They sent a message that was very ominous and then stopped responding. And I tell you, I was frantically messaging them. Like, where are you? What happened? Are you okay? Like, my mind was blown by this game. I really, really love it so much. I want to play it again. Somebody who had played it previously that watched our stream said that just in the character creation process, our game was very different from theirs, because those relationships you form pre-game help dictate what's actually going to happen during the game. So, needless to say, and this was developed by Hunters Entertainment, game designed by Spencer Stark, published by Renegade Games. Small little box. If you are interested in RPGs and you worry about your ability to ad-lib verbally, this might be a good one to check out, because I think for some people, texting is a little bit less scary maybe than speaking out loud to a group. I obviously love to talk and will play a regular RPG all day, every day, but this is something very special. So I wanted to give it a shout out. I definitely want to play it again, and I would highly recommend, if you are interested in a really interesting RPG experience, Alice is Missing.
Wow. So are there particular scenarios that you are playing through, or is it sort of player generated that you're working your way through?
It's sort of player generated. So those cards kind of give you a pretty good idea. They set up the game. So the first card is always given to the Charlie Barnes character, who is the one that's coming back into town after being away. And they start the story off with a group text. And then some of the other cards will help push the story along. Like, as an example, 10 minutes into the game, some of the prompts include things like, there's suspect cards as well that get pulled that could be, people that were maybe responsible for Alice's disappearance. And so, like, in this card, it says to reveal a suspect card. That person just posted something suspicious involving Alice to their social media account. Or you remember Alice finding out something dark about that person's past. Or you went to the police with a lead, but they ignored you. So these prompts are written in a really intelligent way that they give you something to go off of, but they don't necessarily dictate exactly what it means. And so it allows the players to kind of creatively come up with what that actually means. So obviously, if you aren't good at improv at all, I think you could struggle with this. But like, honestly, because it's text messaging, it really didn't feel difficult. I don't know. I'm enamored with it, and it's hard for me to put into words exactly how special it is.
Very, very cool. No, now I'm really interested, and I want to try it out sometime.
Yeah, well, I would be down to play it again if you ever need someone to play with.
Cool. I have a second edition of a game to talk about today. I finally got Gravwell second edition to the table.
Ooh,
This
I'm
one,
very curious about this because I love Gravwell. I own the first edition.
oh, excellent. So, let's back up for 1 second. This is the first edition of Gravwell, which was originally a Cryptozoic release. I feel like we talked
Okay, so
about
wait,
this.
sorry. I have the second edition of Gravwell then, because mine looks different than that. So are there
You
three
have
editions?
you have like 1.5. So Cryptozoic had the first one, and then when Renegades started, it took Gravwell from Cryptozoic, and just re-released the first edition of the game.
Oh, okay. So that's, yes, I have Renegade's version of the game.
Yes. So then, this is the first edition board. You are escaping from the center of the board, working your way around this big spiral, trying to get out. You're a ship that's been trapped. And the first edition of the ships, they're different colors, but they're the same ship design. It's not really focusing in on them, but there you go. Cool little ships. They look like F-14s a little bit, and then you've got these derelict ships too that are floating around. So that's the first edition of the game. The object is to escape, and the trick is that you cannot use regular engines. You have to use your tractor beams and repulsor beams to latch on to distant objects and catapult yourself forward on the course of your journey. You do this by playing numbered cards. Now I'm switching to the second edition cards because they're the ones that I have handy. But this one says you're going to move 2 spaces by reaching out to the closest object and pulling yourself toward it, using your tractor beam to move toward the closest object. There's also repulsor beams that move you away from the closest object. There's also, in this new edition of the game, cards that bring everybody toward you, and cards that push everything away from you. You'll notice that there are letters on all of these cards. That's because you're going to play simultaneously. On your turn, you place down one of these cards, and everybody reveals, and then you execute in alphabetical order and start leapfrogging over each other and grabbing the nearest object. Now, the tricky part is that spiral and this linear thing that you're on. When you execute your card, the situation might be different than it was when you started your turn or when you played the card. And so you're grabbing onto something that maybe the closest object is now behind you instead of in front of you. And so you're going backwards or in a direction you didn't want to go. So that was original Gravwell. Oh, there was one other thing that you had an emergency stop card. So if say you're suddenly going 9 spaces backwards instead of forwards, you can decide, all right, you know what? I'm not going to go. I execute my emergency stop. I move not at all. Here's the new edition of Gravwell. It's in a slightly larger box, although I don't know, maybe your edition comes in this size box as well. This is sort of Renegade's standard square box. It's a little smaller than a Ticket to Ride.
I will say that the box is way bigger than is necessary for the components. The only reason the box is the size it is, as far as I can tell, is the board itself.
There's a little bit more in the new edition. So here is the new edition board. It's a little prettier.
Ooh,
a little more
pretty.
So one of the big differences is that this now plays 6 players. And the way they make that work, because it can get a little chaotic, is that there is now an inner warp gate come on, there we go. Inner warp gate and an outer warp gate. And if you're playing with more than 3 or 4, maybe it's 4, more than 4 players, you start on opposite ends. Like you have 3 players in the middle and 3 players on the end, and the object is to get to the opposite side. So it's basically like a 3-player game where you leapfrog and leapfrog and leapfrog, and then you meet in the middle, chaos, and then you split into a 3-player game again for the finale. The other differences are that Each of the ship models is now different. So you've got a red ship model that's sort of a blocky design, and then a real sleek ship for the black. You've got the yellow that looks like an old-timey spacecraft, and I kind of like the blue design with this, wing shape. That's pretty cool too.
Ooh, yeah, that's cool.
And they replaced the derelict ships with these cargo containers that you can't quite see, but it's got a Renegade game symbol on it.
Okay, that's cute. Can they solve the shipping crisis is the question.
Yes, no, sadly. The other trick is that now all the colors have their own abilities. You have that emergency stop. Where'd it go? Your emergency stop is in the game, and it starts the game charged, and you can say, I'm not going anywhere. But every round of the game, you deal out 6 cards to everybody, and everybody plays those 6 cards. That is a round. When that round is done, you get your emergency stop back. If you don't use your emergency stop, you can charge one of your other 3 abilities as well, and these are unique for each ship. You can also charge these by performing certain tasks in the game, stopping your ship in between 2 ships, or crossing over a certain space, something like that. So this one says, if you end your movement in the center of the board, in the Merton cloud, you can launch, or you can arm this to use it, and it says, at the start of a phase, you may choose to resolve your fuel card first, regardless of its letter order. There's another one that says you don't play your card until you get to see everybody else's card, a precognition ability. And they're all little, rule breaker stuff, but it's different for each color, which is very, very cool. So it doesn't add much time to add the 6th player because everyone's playing simultaneously. In fact, they even streamlined the card drafting. After the first round, you start drafting cards, which is cool. You can see what is available and grab those cards to move for the next round. I still really, really like this game. It is not a thinkery game because it can have plenty of chaos. There can be plenty of things that go wrong. Your plans will go awry, but that is the whole point of Gravwell. And trying to hope that your plans will turn out the way you want, in the order that you want, and that things will execute in the order you want. It's never going to work out that way, but that's half the fun. You can play, there's actually rules in here for playing traditional Gravwell, so you can take out the extra abilities and just play with the all-stop card, emergency stop card. That's really the only thing, component-wise, you can play the original game here. So if you don't have Gravwell already, it's a no-brainer. It is better than the original edition. If you already own Gravwell and you're bummed that you can't play with 6, there you go. And if you felt like it seems a little samey, and those extra abilities are something that you're interested in, then definitely go for those as well, because it is fun to use those extra powers to move your ship around. So Gravwell 2nd edition, which I believe is either about to be released, I think it might be a official Gen Con release, or it's available now. But yeah, check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, it's one of those situations where I'm a little bummed because I definitely don't need it since I own a previous edition of the game, but the new stuff sounds so cool. And I mentioned Gravwell in a recent episode that we did about racing games, because it's one of my favorite racing games that most people don't think about as a racing game, but it definitely is. So
Indeed. Yeah, I know we talked about it a little bit with the Cryptozoic and Renegade thing a few weeks ago. But yeah, it's good to see it out and getting some love from the publisher and hopefully finding a new audience.
Awesome. Well, Eric, I think it's about time we play a game with the chat. What do you think?
I think that's a lovely idea, and I'm fascinated by what you have planned for us.
All right, so this is one of those things where it could go a little bit weird because of the YouTube delay, but I've set the game up in a way to hopefully mitigate for that. So, chat, we're about to play tic-tac-toe, but it's team-based tic-tac-toe, and it kind of is like tic-tac-toe and the movie Inception put together, because Well, Eric, why don't you just transition over to
Let's
our
bring
screen
it up
here.
We're playing Tic-Tac Together.
Tic-Tac Together. This is a game that was introduced to me by somebody in my Discord channel just this past week, and I have now played it a whole bunch of times. I'm mildly obsessed with it, you might say, in fact. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be playing a team-based tic-tac-toe game where we can have up to 12 players total. So Eric, you and I will be on different teams, and then we will each have 5 people on our team with us from the chat. And then each person is going to get a single move each round. By a move, that means placing a symbol for your team, either an X or an O, onto the grid. So you're going to have multiple placements each turn. We'll have 6 for each team, in fact. If a single person goes to a square, so like if I'm on team X's and I go to the top left corner, then an X is in the top left corner. Simple as that. But if somebody from the O team also goes to that space, that square now turns into a tinier game of tic-tac-toe, and that you have to win to claim the square on the original board.
Okay.
And I have it set, technically the game can accommodate up to 10 levels of Inception. I have it set to max out at 3.
Okay.
Because, we don't have all night.
Oh my goodness.
But you might be asking, well, you got 6 moves per team. What if your teammates go to the same spot as you? Well, then you're just stacking up and making it more powerful. So you can fight over a spot, meaning like if 3 people from one team go there and 4 people from the other team go there, the team that put 4 there wins the space. So hotly contested spaces will often get a lot of action, so to speak. And you can see where your teammates are thinking about going, because you're going to see on your screen. Again, pull this up on a mobile device. I haven't given you all the URL yet. I'm going to actually put it in the chat right now. It's going to be on screen here in a second, but I just want you guys to go ahead and do this before I pull it up. So the URL is playxo.games. That's the URL you're going to want to go to. And Eric, you and I need to make sure that we get in, but I think because of the delay, that should not be an issue. So just let me know once you're in there, and then I can.
I am there. I need a room code and a name. I'm gonna put my name in first.
So the room. Okay, well the room code is now up, so you can see it, and the chat will see it shortly. Invalid code. What?
Invalid code.
Hello?
I'm here.
It says invalid code. It worked for you?
No, it said invalid code for me as well.
Okay, well let's try this one then.
Maybe people will play a different game.
There we go.
All right.
Okay, so now you and I are here, and the chat, when they see the code, they can hop in as well. And chat, just as a note, you're going to want to keep an eye on your device if you are playing, because I've set the timer to be pretty long, but you're going to want to submit your moves, as quickly as you can once it comes up on your screen. And obviously, because of the YouTube delay, what happens between rounds won't necessarily show up for you at the same time that it does for us. So again, this is going to be one of those ones where the delay makes it a little bit difficult, but all right. And we've got almost everybody in already.
Players.
Yeah. Okay. We've got one more spot. And then we're going to get started. So again, y'all, everybody has to submit their moves, and we're just trying to play tic-tac-toe. That's it. It's pretty simple, right? All right, we got all 12 players, so I'm going to click the start button. So everybody on your devices, which you should already see at this point if you're hearing me say this, you're just going to pick a square to put your spot in, and you're going to see all your opponents, all your team members, not your opponents. Yeah, your teammates considering things as well. And once they've locked something in, you'll see the symbol get filled in. So I'm going to go there.
I guess I could have waited for more people to see it, but that's fine. Well, our game is now live.
We've got only a couple more people that need to submit their moves. And there we go. So everybody's going to they'll be waiting for it, but you and I will see it right now.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no! Okay. No!
Oh, no!
The game's
Yay!
over.
Wait, that's my team. Yay!
The
Okay.
game is over.
Okay, well, since that one went so quick, we're just going to start another one right away with the same people. And then if this one goes a little bit longer, I'll boot everybody out and start a new game so we can get new players in. But obviously that one was pretty quick.
That was way too fast.
Now everybody has seen how it works. And yes, and as Amanda notes in the chat, she's not used to doing one move per person. When you play with any number of players, you can actually set it up so each person has multiple moves, and that makes it really interesting. Ooh, let's see what happened here. Oh, okay. Well, we got
a fight.
Yep, we got a couple fights happening.
Oh boy.
All right, moving into round 2, so everybody can see on their devices now. Oh my, this is going to be...
So now, do we have to... Anybody can interact in the contested zones?
Yeah, you can stay on the original grid. You can move out or move down to the subgrids. It's fascinating because you're like, wait, they could win there, but they could also win over there, and like...
Yeah, I don't know.
And I know for those of you
here.
who are playing, I know that it's a little bit odd to have the delay and you're seeing the cool stuff happen on the stream after the fact, but hopefully it's still coming across the fun here. We've got one person left to submit their move. Herman is thinking really hard.
Okay. Is that why Herman is small?
Awesome.
Oh, I see.
Yes, that is why Herman is the little X is smaller on the screen right now. Herman, I believe in you. Yay! All right, let's see what happened. Oh. Jerry.
All alone.
Like, I'm going to hang out in here. Yep. Whoa.
No!
The little animations are super great.
Oh, that's not good.
Uh-oh. Okay.
There you go. Fight! And we win.
Where did all the other X's go? I feel like, they're all down there. Okay. Yeah. All right. So that was, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back us back out, Eric, and then we're going to start a new game so that way we can potentially get some new players in. All right. So new code.
Do. All right, I'm in.
All right. And I'm certain we'll have people from the chat joining us shortly.
This is fun. What's the longest game you've had go?
That's a really good question. I know we've gotten down to 4 layers in one of my games, and like that was kind of it gets really bananas when you have like a few people on each team and then you give them multiple moves each. I also have played it where what's neat about this game is you don't have to have balanced teams. We could technically play one versus everybody else. You could have one person on one side and 11 people on the other, and it'll give the teams an equal number of moves. So on the 11 side, they might each get 1 move, and then the person that's by themselves will get 11 moves to place. And you would think that doing it by yourself would be easier because you don't have to do the groupthink thing. I am horrible playing one versus all in this game.
Okay. Looks like we got one more.
Yep, one more spot.
Oh, did I put the song in your head? Oh, sorry about that, chat.
Yeah, you're not sorry at all. Okay, we got everybody. Here we go.
Anytime we have any sort of word that has the same number of syllables as mana, and I mess up on it when I'm in the booth recording, we end up doing a mana.
Do. Y'all, everybody's so quick with their moves. I set up a 90-second timer just to make sure, like just in case.
Well, that might mean we're terrible at this game. I mean, this is the tiebreaker, right? If either one of us wins this, they win the championship of the world. So
that is true.
Jeremiah is asking, how does this play? It is regular tic-tac-toe, but you don't see what your teammates... I mean, you do see what your teammates are doing. Fight! Oh my goodness, what's happening?
Oh, Oh, oh,
Ah.
oh, oh.
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 Oh
So
boy.
no obvious
No
win
obvious
spaces
win this
here.
time. Okay. Well,
Okay, interesting.
then oh goody. Yeah, this
So
isn't
this is
good.
one of those games, like, obviously there is strategy. Like, tic-tac-toe by itself is a solved game, but this kind of breaks all of that in a whole bunch of ways and makes it a little bit chaotic, to say the least. But
It does.
I have found it is really fun. And if you're hanging out with friends and you want to play a game over Zoom, this is a great one for that. And it's on Steam. It's not even made by a publishing company. It's a couple of random people who designed this, I believe. I haven't been able to find any other information other than that. And it's $5 if you want to buy it on Steam. So okay. Let's
I
see.
mean, there are things that could be
Got
happening
one
here now that
person
I look
left.
at the board.
That's this could be interesting.
All right. Well,
All right.
let's find
Here we
out.
go.
Just a lonely
Serenity
little.
was like, I'm going over here.
Okay, here. This is the one that I expected to be. Oh boy, that's not good. There we go.
Oh,
Fight.
here we go.
Don't.
Okay, okay.
There's Crystal. Hello, Crystal. And another
This
fight.
one, this is getting interesting now. Oh gosh, now what do we do? Oh my. Okay.
Oh.
I don't like X's. I don't like our odds here.
I'm hoping. I mean, there could be all sorts of things happening
in this
here.
game. I love the little animations, like especially like when they're just like glaring at each other. It's so funny to me.
It doesn't look good for the red team.
It does not look good for the red team. I'm on the red team, and I agree it doesn't look good for us. Y'all have set yourselves up really well. I love Mr. E's like pleading in the chat. He's like, someone come help me.
Help me!
Oh. And so yes, again, I only set this to go down 3 layers, so that little tiny blue grid that's down there is the lowest we could go, but technically the game will accommodate up to 10 layers of boards.
Wow.
Which is I haven't gone that deep.
All right, here we go.
Just
fight. Oh, so what happens there? Oh,
okay.
It just remains. They just blanket.
Oh, maybe it's 3 levels down. So maybe that. Okay, yeah.
Uh-oh.
No!
There we go.
Yeah.
And that's a win. And then it's a win.
That's a win. That's gonna.
Woohoo!
And Herman's just like, I'm gonna hang out up here too. All right, green team wins.
All right, well done, green team.
All right, so that was together.
We did it.
So, thanks. Yeah, and congrats to people who played on the green team, whether you were in the first group or the second group. Y'all are winners tonight.
We're all winners.
I mean, honestly, like, who would have thought that tic-tac-toe would actually be, like, legitimately fun again? You know?
All right, so it's time to start our thematic discussion. And based on the chat talking before we even started, some folks are really excited about this. This was your idea, Crystal, so I'm going to let you lead it off. We're talking about team-building games.
So it's funny, my boss came to me and she said, hey, you know, we have a big team meeting coming up. Do you have any little like games or activities that we could play? And I said, boy, howdy do I. But then I was like, wait a second. I was like, you know, like I kind of have some go-tos that I use for team building exercises. And I thought that we could discuss what our favorites are for that reason, and then get some input from the chat about what they think good team building games are. I'd say in a lot of instances, cooperative games are really great for team building. And since people who aren't in the hobby sometimes don't even know that cooperative games exist, you know, that's fun to introduce to people. But there are games that aren't cooperative that can also be used as team building activities, as we're going to get into here in like just right now.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, co-op games come to mind right off the bat. But I kind of had fun picking things that weren't necessarily co-op games. Where do you want to start in this journey, Crystal?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Um, what about kind of like party style games that work good for team building? Did
Okay.
you like, are any of the ones that you thought about kind of in that vein?
The team versus team stuff. I actually didn't really think of the party stuff, but something like code names or oh golly, we talked about it before the show, Decrypto, as a great
Yeah.
suggestion for working with your team's knowledge base to get something across in a sneaky way.
Yeah, I grabbed Codenames Duet off the shelf, but I own regular Codenames Pictures, and Codenames Duet, and all of the above can work really great for team building in my mind. And I have used them before. In fact, at a previous job, I brought Codenames in and I explained the game, and then I gave the first clue and pointed them directly to the assassin. And I had to do that moment of, so that's what you're not supposed to do.
That's how we lose.
Yeah, that's what I was just giving you an example of what not to do. Now we're going to play the game for real. And it was quite embarrassing and also hilarious. So other games that I thought of that are kind of party-esque, that not necessarily cooperative, I think Stay Cool is actually a really good one, especially if you work in a job or an environment that can be high stress. And also if you are somebody that needs to multitask. And so this game, it is multitasking, the game, basically. I told my boss that I was going to bring this, and I described it to her, and she said, I have anxiety already. So for those of you who don't know what Stay Cool is, if you are the active player, all you have to do is answer very simple trivia questions that anybody would know, except you're answering questions from two people at the same time. And one of those people you're answering verbally, and the other person you're answering by spelling out answers on dice with letters on them. And you have to do those things well simultaneously to score well. And needless to say, my brain breaks when I play this game, but it's so much fun. And in subsequent rounds, the game gets harder because there's a timed aspect to it. And in the last round of the game, you have to play where you have to tell the timekeeper when to flip over the timer every 30 seconds, but you don't get to look at the timer. And you're still trying to multitask at the same time.
It's so evil.
It's evil in the best way. And yeah, so I think this one is a fun one that people probably wouldn't necessarily consider for team building, but since everybody is participating in every player's turn to some degree, especially in a small group, I think it's really good.
Yeah, that time pressure is an interesting aspect to some of these, and this is one of the straight co-ops that I mentioned was the easy choice, but this one doesn't get talked about a whole lot. Fuse, which is a Kane Klenko game, you're drafting dice to solve little mini puzzles that are in front of you, but you roll, say if there's 4 players, you roll 4 dice, and everybody has to take a die. And so it's a timed 10-minute game, which reminds me, this might fit on a list that we're working on later. It's a timed game in which you're trying to complete a certain number of puzzles within the time limit. And so you have to quickly decide who gets what die. And somebody's like, please just leave me that black die. I need a 5. All I need is a 5. And trying to decide who isn't going to be stuck with something they can't use in a particular drafting round, because that's when things get painful. But that helping, completing your own goals while still keeping everybody else's in mind is definitely a team building aspect.
For sure. Another game that I grabbed that is also definitely in the party game arena is Mad Gab. If your boss is like, we need to work on our communication skills, this is the one you get, because you're saying nonsensical phrases that when you say them out loud are supposed to sound like something else, and everybody has to figure out what that is. Like, let's see, if I said, ace lip puff that hung, What would that mean, Eric? A slip, puff that hung. A slip, puff that hung.
Hey, slip that.
A slip, puff that hung. A slip, puff that hung. A slip, puff that hung.
Something about a tongue. Hey, wait. Hey, I stubbed my tongue?
A slip of the tongue.
Ah, there we go.
I'm horrible at these games, and I love them.
Hey, I stubbed
Super
my
fun.
tongue.
I mean, you know, the who knows what happens? It's possible.
Talking of communication, I went looking for this. I swear I still have this game, but I couldn't find it. Mental Blocks is a game by Pandasaurus where you have to build structures, 3D structures, using these colored blocks of varying sizes and colors and all sorts of stuff. But there is some sort of communication or action restriction that you have been given as a member of the team. So maybe I can't touch blue pieces. Or maybe I'm not allowed to talk and I have to use nonverbal communication. Or I can only use triangular pieces in the course of the game. And so you have to work together. And you all have one view of the 3D shape. And so you have to communicate about what I see, and then somebody's like, yeah, but that doesn't fit what I see. Oh, well, maybe this fits here. Oh, but that now breaks me over here. And all with this and the communication hiccups that you have to work with. Very good team building exercise. In fact, I think that's what I said, is that this is definitely what a team building exercise game should look like. Mental Blocks is very, very cool for that.
It's so funny because I tend generally to be really good at like games that involve a spatial puzzle aspect. I am the worst at Mental Blocks. Like, no, like legitimately, me and my friend Kathy played it together. We could not put the pieces together. We like started flipping over all the cards face up so we could see all of them together, and we still couldn't make some of the simplest shapes in the game. I don't know what, my brain just was not grokking it at all. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna put this back on the shelf for a little while. Like, my brain and that one just don't work.
Yep.
So like, I've got more games to show off, Eric, but I want to ask, what makes a good team building game? Like, we've been talking about a bunch of different types of games, but like, in my mind, because we've had a bunch of suggestions come by in the chat, including some cooperative games that are really well known, like Pandemic.
Yep.
But in my mind, if we're talking pure team building games, generally, I think you're looking for something with a little bit shorter of a time, a total play time. Like, Pandemic is going to take a little bit longer, and in some instances you may be given that amount of time for a team building exercise, but I think generally it's going to be something that they want to be a little bit quicker and snappier. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, although you can certainly be building a team with something that's a little bit longer. I think what makes a good team building game is something that emphasizes the differences in the players with special abilities, special tasks, something that only, say, if you and I are on a team, that there's a task that only you can perform. And I need to either give you what you need to perform that task, or let you do that and rely on your expertise to tell me what I need to know to do my job. So stuff like
I mean,
like
you kind
Captain
of just
Sonar.
described the, yes, Captain Sonar is a great example of that.
Where you can really only focus on what you are doing, and then your direct lines of communication. And I love Captain Sonar for this, because, say, I'm the radio operator and I'm focusing on what the other player is listening to and mapping the other folks, and I'm totally focused on this map. But when I know something, then it's like, get that information to the captain right away, and quick, we gotta fire now, and this. But while I'm not ready to interact with that, I'm focused in my little thing and relying on my teammates to keep us safe and to keep the engines running and to do all of that stuff. Because I can't. That's another real-time game. I can't be focused on the other stuff. I have to do my job and then be willing to, be the best position that I can be when it's time to work together on a particular thing.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I do think that there are a decent number of real-time games that work well in this space. When you were describing, before you mentioned Captain Sonar, I was thinking of the board game version of Space Team, which is also real-time and chaotic. But yeah, you have to rely on other players for certain things, and you have to be able to communicate that quickly. Other real-time games where you got to rely on other people, Rail Pass, toot toot. I love this game. It's so silly. But yeah, you got to deliver those goods, and you gotta pass those trains from one person to the next.
Yep.
Lots of interesting things coming up in the chat, and in fact, a whole bunch of people are currently mentioning Wits and Wagers, which, while it can be played individually, can also be played on teams, like Tom hosts at many Dice Tower events. So if you have a really big group, like you've been tasked with team building for like a whole department, Wits and Wagers is absolutely perfect for that. And in fact, something that I recommend, if you ever want to host a Wits and Wagers game for like a smaller group of coworkers, what I've done in the past is I'll send out an email to people and ask them for like a couple of like things that they enjoy. Like, do you like, makeup or a specific TV show or whatever else? And then I go do research on the internet, kind of like Tom does for his games. And I make questions up based on the interests of the people involved. And so it kind of gives them a little bit more of an emotional investment in the game. And I think it makes it even more special.
David M. jumped into the chat to sort of twist us in a different direction, looking for a game that is competitive. You're working against each other, but you are building something generally. Like you're using the same resources. You're using the same board position. I was thinking of, what did I pull off the shelf? Fayum is one of the new, Freedom and Freeze games. Where you're building on this one map of Egypt, and placing out workers and clearing spaces and building roads and interacting with the board, but you don't own anything on the board. It all belongs to the pharaoh. And so another player can then utilize those workers, utilize that road, utilize the map you've cleared in order to achieve their ends. And so, well, it's not like, the semi-co-op style of thing where, if we don't build this road for the pharaoh, we all lose. You're still working together to mold the map and hopefully getting your own ends complete as well.
So there were some comments in the chat that I wanted to respond to. So Corlu mentioned that Tantrum House played the 4 to 6 player version of Captain Sonar last month. I think that's the one that's just called Sonar, right? Have you played the smaller version of Captain Sonar, the like easier to get into one?
I have not. I've seen it in stores, but I have not had a chance to play it.
I'm curious about that one because I do think that Captain Sonar has a little bit of a higher barrier to entry for newer gamers, especially because each role, you have to teach kind of separately. And I'm curious to know whether the lighter version is a little bit easier to get into. And then something else that I think it was also Corlu who said, yes, she said, it's funny how team building games could be ones that require you to communicate with each other or work together without communication, like in The Crew. And I think that's a really good example too, because it's kind of just about connecting with people and getting on the same wavelength as them. Wavelength is another good one that I did not pull off the shelf, but would be great for team building. But when you're talking about not communicating, I honestly think The Mind is also a really good one as well, because it's about, kind of forming a connection with the people that you're with. It's not necessarily always about verbal communication.
Yeah. Another one sort of circling back to the strength of interacting with your teammates and relying on other people's expertise is another one of these physical digital hybrid games called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Yeah.
Which has one player looking at a digital screen with a bunch of components on it and panels and switches and things to interact with, but they don't know what any of it does. And the other team members have a physical book, a manual for running the whole thing. and they have to figure out what to do with the stuff. And it's played so that the other players, the team that has the manual, can't see what the person who's operating it has in front of them. And in fact, Jeff Engelstein has talked about playing it in separate rooms over a speakerphone. So you have to communicate totally verbally. You can't gesture, you can't interact in any way other than over the phone, to get your teammate to flip the switches in the proper order and figure out what they're looking at in the first place, to make all of that work.
Yeah, it's very like, it's okay, if the serial number ends in an even number, then cut the blue wire kind of stuff.
Right.
And this game, for the digital component, can also be played in VR, which is pretty cool because then you can physically manipulate the like briefcase that is the bomb that you're defusing, and that's pretty neat as well.
I have not seen that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So one game that I wanted to show that I'm not going to bring to my coworkers for our team building thing, but I kind of wish I want to, but I'm not going to. It is a really special game that I just recently got and haven't been able to play yet.
Oh, I know about this one.
Magic Calligraphy. It is a cooperative game where I'm not even going to take it out of the box because it's so handmade.
Wow.
There is a quill with 4 metal rings tied to it with fishing line. I don't even know if you can see that, probably. And 4 different players each control one of those rings. You dip the quill into ink, and then you have to draw together using this single quill, but there's 4 people controlling it. And I am so excited to try this at some point, but I don't want the first time I play it to be with my coworkers. I want this to be an at-home friend experience when I do get to it, and I'm not having people over to game right now, but I'm so excited that I was able to get a copy of this. There were a very limited number of them available, and I jumped on the website the second they went live. So
is that an actual
hopefully I'll be able
container? This is like actually a feather or a fountain pen?
Yes, there's not ink in it, so I wonder if I have to buy my own ink, but Inkwell. Yes, no, that's good to note. I hadn't actually I've been so scared. It's like very handmade as far as board games go. I'm very scared I'm going to ruin it.
Yeah.
But yes, it does have an Inkwell. I don't know if there's ink in there somewhere else. Maybe there's not. I'll have to buy ink, I guess.
Let's see. Speaking of team games and Jeff Engelstein, Space Cadets Dice Duel is another one that's team versus team, real time, relying on everybody else's expertise. Oh, here's another twist on team building. What if the object of the game is to build your team? I'm thinking of Firefly, where you are collecting a team and getting groups of people that have different strengths and abilities and then going on missions with them and hopefully, having the right team to get through the adventures that you have to get through.
And I think another category of games that we haven't touched on yet, but that seems like a pretty obvious good one for team building, escape room games. Escape rooms are also great for team building, but if you're tasked with doing a team building activity in the office and they've given you, say, an hour, one of the exits or unlocks could be great for that.
It could be, as long as everyone can see it. Yeah, well, I was going to say, what if for the entire month of December you began your staff meeting with a short puzzle, perhaps? If only someone had produced. I am so jealous. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so everybody in the chat, this is not commercially available in the United States. I am a ridiculous human being, so I ordered it off of UK Amazon and paid way more in shipping than you should pay for any board game. But I really wanted it, so I bought it. And this is the Exit Advent Calendar. I'm going to have to wait till December to play it. I mean, I don't have to. Technically, I could play it now, but I don't want to,
Right.
I've got to wait till December. But yeah, it is pretty cool. It looks like it includes a whole bunch of really neat components. And yeah, there's 24 different little doors in here, I guess, it says 24 riddles. And there's a whole bunch of other items included as well as part of that. So I'm pretty excited to get this one played, but I gotta wait. I gotta wait till Christmas, till December.
I need to order this.
I almost forgot. Yeah, you should order it. I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, the value of an item is different for every single person. But I know you well enough to know that you like the exit games enough that you won't regret buying this. Even if the puzzles end up being on the mediocre side for exit games, the experience of playing that with your kids over the month of December, Eric, like, there's no way you're going to regret that purchase.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, so I have one more team building game that I forgot I grabbed off the shelf because it was down here on the floor because it's real big, and I just had to. It's Drop Mix.
Yes.
Nobody talks about this one anymore, but I still love Drop Mix. It's literally, you get to be a DJ, and you can play this in teams or co-op mode. There's a whole bunch of different modes for this one, and you literally get to live out your DJ fantasies and mix music together, and the tech that does it is pretty neat. And I'm guessing, I don't know for this for a fact, this is conjecture, but I'm guessing you can pick Drop Mix up if you find it probably a lot cheaper than when it released at this point. That would be my guess.
If you can find it, I think is the key.
If you can find it.
Because I think it's one of those things that people grabbed it when it dropped significantly in price. I think you could get it for about a third of its original cost at one point, and that's when folks said, you know what, this is a cool toy, I'm going to try this. But is a neat idea because it is a collaborative music making experience. Even just playing with it, that is a collaborative activity to just make music. And I'll add this beat and I'll do this, and I can see some manager being like, "Yes, this is a metaphor for life in the office." Well, you just make sick beats.
Let's synergize this Drop Mix music together.
Yes.
All right. Well, we've discussed a whole bunch about team building games. Hopefully, I know a bunch of people were excited for this discussion. Hopefully, you all got some new ideas. If you ever have to host some team building activities for your coworkers or classmates in the future. And thank you all for dropping all of your suggestions in the chat. We have just a few minutes left in tonight's episode. So if you all have any questions for Eric or myself, they don't have to be about team building games. They could be about any games or anything. Like, for instance, last week was Star Trek Day, and a whole bunch of new trailers and information about upcoming Star Trek series were released, and I'm not excited about any of that stuff at all.
Oh, no, and the big news is that for the first time since DS9 and Voyager, or TNG and DS9, since whenever, there will be 2 Star Trek series simultaneously with new episodes on the air at the same time.
Yeah. So we've had, because like most of the ones that have been happening over the past few years have been kind of cycling on and off. But Lower Decks is still airing. Discovery starts in November. Picard comes back early or next in the winter at the end or beginning of next year. Is that right? I don't remember the date now.
Yeah. But Prodigy is the one that's coming up.
Oh yeah, Prodigy's starting too. Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's 5 Star Trek shows, y'all. 5! I'm so excited. I could not be happier with this.
My fingers are crossed that this will be my entry point for the kids and Star Trek, because I've actually had trouble trying to, like, where do you start? If you're just like, we're going to do Star Trek now. What do you do? I mean, you can, I just don't think they're going to have the interest to start from the beginning and, do the original series. And I was thinking maybe we could throw in a couple of episodes of the original series and then maybe jump to the 2009 movie and see if that might grab them. I almost want to just pick and choose and see if there's something that catches their attention. I think Prodigy might do that if I just say, hey, there's a new family series on that I think you guys might like, and it looks like it's a bunch of alien kids finding a Starfleet vessel and going on adventures. That seems pretty cool, and it might be enough of a hook that they go, what? Who's this Janeway character? And I don't know, maybe. They tend to just repel anything that I'm interested in, so it's a dangerous prospect. If I mess this up, they might never look at Star Trek.
I mean, to be fair, I did the exact same thing with my dad when I was a kid. Like, anytime he told me, you should watch a thing or read a thing. Well, not anytime, because technically he did get me into Star Trek. So I don't actually remember. That's a good point. I don't remember how he got me into Star Trek. It had to have been Next Generation. I know that he and I always went to all the movies together, but I definitely watched the shows on television as well. So I've not really watched. I didn't watch the original series when I was a kid. So it had to have been just Next Gen. But yeah, it's hard, I think, to get kids into Trek because there isn't a solid starting place that's really obvious. For adults, I have some suggestions, but for kids, it's different. Prodigy, I mean, come on, y'all. There's a Star Trek show on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
How neat is that?
Yeah.
I'm so excited. And it looks really, really fun from the trailer.
Is it airing on the Nickelodeon network as well as Paramount Plus?
I am not actually sure. I think so, maybe, because I don't know. I shouldn't speak because I'm not certain. I know it is produced.
Yes,
it
says
in
Nickelodeon on the
Nickelodeon.
On the top.
Yeah. But it might only be on Paramount Plus, which, admittedly, as streaming services go, people used to hate on CBS All Access, and I get it. But Paramount Plus has really stepped up their game. It's real good, and there's a lot of good content on there.
Yes. Let's see. Any other questions flying by? Obviously, we are not at Gen Con. I think it was just a smaller number of people going to Gen Con this year. I'm still holding out hope that PAX Unplugged is going to be a possibility at the end of the year. That will be the one big convention that is on my radar, at least. And I'm hoping that still happens. Who knows? If we've learned anything in the past 2 years or so, it's that you can't count on anything being a done deal. But I'm hoping that a trip to Philadelphia is still in the cards.
I will admit that at this point, even though it's 3 months out, PAX Unplugged is looking more and more unlikely for me since it will involve traveling all the way across the country in addition to the con itself. I actually, of all of the con organizers that exist, including those of us at the Dice Tower, I kind of trust the PAX Unplugged people to do it right, more so than most. But there's still a level of risk in any of these situations at this point. And for me, since I fall into high risk categories, it doesn't seem worth it. So I still have my hotel reservation, but I haven't bought plane tickets yet. And I'm just going to have to see how things go. But yeah, I'm still hopeful about PAX Unplugged.
David asks, speaking of Star Trek on Nickelodeon, did you ever watch Space Cases back in the day?
I can't say that I did.
No, I'm trying to think. I know I saw an episode or two. It actually had one of the Power Rangers on it, if I'm not mistaken. I think one of the original Power Rangers was on that show. It was a live-action sci-fi series, and I think my younger siblings might have watched it. That may have been the era in which it was on, but that's about all I know. Folks talking about the Orwell, which has been a very entertaining Star Trek adjacent program I've enjoyed. With Norm Macdonald passing away this week, I don't know. I think they finished production on it, but he was.
All right, so let's wrap things up. David M has a final question for you, Eric.
Yep.
Mana.
Do 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 do.
All right, and that's going to be our show for this evening, friends. As always, we really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the show tonight, if you click the little thumbs up button below the video so the YouTube algorithms can push this video to your friends or anybody else who likes the same type of content that you do, and it gives us warm fuzzies in our hearts. So, do it for that reason, if no other. We really appreciate it. We are here every 2 weeks on Wednesday evenings, and our next episode will be in 2 weeks on September 29th at 6 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern. Now, before we go though, Eric.
Yeah.
Should we spoil the other thing that you and I are working on together this week, or should we leave?
Well, we should definitely talk about it. So, those of you who watch this program may be aware there's a podcast that gets put out on the Dice Tower's channel. It's called The Dice Tower. And since
that little old podcast, The Dice Tower.
Since Tom is at Gen Con right now, and I am not, and Crystal is not, we decided let's take over the show. So for next week's episode, we'll be recording later this week, but the one that posts on Tuesday of next week, my co-host will be the lovely Crystal Dax. And we're going to continue the shenanigans in audio form in episode, I don't even remember what number it is, in next week's episode of the Dice Tower, which is going to be a lovely time. We're doing a top 10 games that you can play in 30 minutes or less, which I think is quite appropriate.
I think that is appropriate as well, and it's a topic I'm really excited to touch on. So I'm looking forward to that. And for those of you who just watch us on Dice Tower tonight, we appreciate